the understanding of technical failure as opposed to muscular failure. And I think that's something that is a fairly, I would say within the past year, that concept is something I've been exposed to. Going through a build, I've been able to overshoot and I would say like decouple some of the beliefs I had around sensation driving the most hypertrophy, um, while still respecting the fact that there are going to be times where maybe we do need to shift away from just chasing true technical failure. Maybe that isn't in our best interest, which, i.e., starting a fat loss phase. At this point, I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm going to be able to recover at the intensity that I'm currently at. So, what needs to happen within training design? Well, do we need to shy away from all of our compound movements? No. Do we need to remove like the intensity? Do we need to drop RIR back down? No. We just need to reorganize things so that they allow for the appropriate support and recovery that I am going to have now, because that's not going to be the same whether I'm in a prep or back in a build. It's like the recovery capacity is undulating. And I mean, like, even like intrinsically, you are going to have a degree of stress. And I guess I would say, like, overall, your allostatic load is going to impact how well you can recover, even if theoretically you're being fed well enough, you're still sleeping well. It's like, okay, but how are you doing? And I think what I've found is like really all aspects of fitness, whether it be the adherence within your dietary protocol or your training and auto regulating around what you can tolerate, it still comes back to a skill that must be necessitated. And that's being aware and being very clear on what it is the body needs, what you're feeling, and not shoving that back into that compartment that we, as bodybuilders all love to just, kind of romanticize and be like, well, just suffer through it. It's like,
Hmm.
you're not helping yourself though. Um,
Yeah, and what do you want out of the prep? What do you want to do this show? Do you want to do this season? Then okay, there's a lot of wiggle room. Or do you want to show up year after year and be able to compete and continue to compete until you've achieved the goal that you wanted to achieve, and or a goal that may not even be set yet? And I think that's a different, and again, it kind of falls under my mantra of live to train another day, where during a prep, if you've done, again, like you have more wiggle room in the off season. You have more wiggle room when you have more food available. You have more sleep available. You have less overall body burden and stress on the system. But as that prep ramps up, you really got to be specific. I mean, you're instead of counting by the day, you're or scheduling by the day or scheduling the week out, you're scheduling by the 10-minute increment with your, so it's like, okay, I got 10 minutes here. What do I do? Right. Um, and that's more in reference to like filling a work week up. Right. So it becomes a little bit, it becomes a lot more specific on how much time do I actually have here? How much capacity do I have here? How much recoverability do I have here? And how much room for adaptation do I have here? And what's the bare minimum I need to do to retain the tissue I have? And where's that line of where I can push to potentially maybe even gain a little bit more, right? And I was very fortunate in many of my preps personally to I genuinely think I don't know if it was just being more, quote unquote locked into the process, being a lot more or uh, regimented enough and so on point during prep that I was able actually to gain tissue throughout my prep. Like I noticeably, obviously, as you get leaner, you appear bigger, but my strength would honestly continue to climb. It wasn't until the very end of preps where I'd plateau even. Um, my scale weight would not change all that much. As much body fat as I was losing, I was not losing the same in scale weight. So it's like, well, something's happening here. I'm getting lean. My weight's not changing all that much, but that's got to be some muscle, right? Like I'm doing something right. And I think within that there was a balance created that and enough self-awareness where I understood, okay, where can I push and where can I pull back, or where can I push and where do I need to pull back, and learning that tool of auto-regulation, learning that tool of the ability to kind of check in day by day, week workout by workout, and all right, how am I feeling today? And I think again, you can afford more of that quote unquote suffering, painstaking sessions when you have more time or more to lose there. But as you get into the depths of a prep, you don't have that luxury any longer. And you have to really learn how to obviously push when you are likely not going to want to, but you also need to know when you need to pull back and when enough is enough. And you have to start to identify what those feelings are, right? It's the same. I would make the same comparison with nutrition. How much, okay, I'm hungry. Of course, I'm doing a controlled starvation. I mean, I'm going to be hungry, but I'm hungry. Like I can't get through my day without thinking about food for 2 seconds. So I now oh, that's too much. I gotta dial this back. Maybe I gotta lengthen the runway, right? Because again, my goal was always longevity within the sport. Especially when I first started, I did not. I expected my journey to turn pro to take a decade. Like I set that sight. I was like, well, my goal is by the time I'm 30, I'll have earned my pro card. I'll earn that right to call myself that and to compete with those guys. And it took about 9.5 months. And that was in and of itself its own surprise. And still, then I still had that goal though of longevity. I want longevity in the sport. I don't see myself stopping. And so that was always my intent of how can I stick around longer? How can I be in this longer?
Mm.
And how can I continue to progress through the years and not burn myself out? And I do think that comes down to the ability to be self-aware and to listen and to have people on your side that are looking out for you, referencing a coach and having people that can kind of save you from yourself when you need saving, and can encourage you to be a little bit psychotic when you need to be a little bit psychotic, in a constrained and safe way. But yeah, I'll end that thought there, and see what you got.
No, no, I I hope for listeners that like just shines a light on, you know, really when it comes to auto regulation within one session, within one season, even, it's not as simple as, just following this. I want to say it's a cookie cutter program that a lot of people will just, kind of live and die by. There's a lot that you can gain from developing that skill of being able to auto regulate. And that's really how I would categorize it. Very similar to developing the skill of being able to diet. Like, I don't expect first time competitors, you just new clients, I don't expect them to just have that, embedded into their, tool set. But in the case, and that can be in either regard, whether that be diet or training. But I think that's a really underrated tool that one should go about developing throughout their career. I have been in this sport quite a bit of time, similar to yourself, where I saw a lot of success. And in my case, I saw a lot of success despite knowing like I'm not doing the best with training. Like, I'm doing okay, but I shouldn't look the way that I look based on the prints. Like, a lot of it is, yes, I'm going in and I am lifting heavy, but there's not, I'm certain that there's a more optimal way to do this, something that is more efficient. And really the pursuit of getting answers and gaining clarity around like how should I be building for my goals, for my physique, if, for my needs? But also, how do I develop this skill so that when I'm not working with a coach, or when I am traveling, or when, hey, when work is really pressing and, realistically, I'm going to have to modify training just because of non-fitness related stress, I have that skill set in order to do that. And that really, I think, being able to foster that in clients, I think is invaluable.